Hi friends, it's your girl Harpo. Welcome to this episode of Brown Girl Guilt. Today, my guest is someone so very special to me in my life. My guest today is Anoop Gill. She is the executive director of Community, a leading 2S LGBTQIA+ resource center in British Columbia. With extensive experience in program development and community advocacy, Anoop focuses on enhancing support services for marginalized communities. Under her leadership, Community has expanded its initiatives, grown fiscally, and continued to provide leadership in programming and education. Anoop's North Star centers around justice and service as a Sikh. She has been engaged in nonprofits for over 20 years. Her background in health and advocacy empowers her to imagine different systems and programs involved in service delivery and equity work. And Anoop is here today on the Brown Girl Guilt podcast because she's my mentor.
Oh, yay! That's a big title, one I feel very privileged to hold.
Yeah, I actually have seen many times how you respond to me saying like, hey, this is Anoop, this is my mentor to people. It's so cute.
It's a little bit embarrassing because I'm just like, oh my God, that means a lot of things.
Yeah.
But mentorship to me is reciprocal, right? I have been with you, I think, extensively now.
Yeah.
Like we've been, really growing into your role as ED and other places for about a year, a little bit more than a year now.
Just over a year now.
And in that year, while I have been able to teach you, hopefully, some of the tools and tricks and tips that I have collected over my time, you also have given me so much, right? An opportunity to reframe some of my narratives, I think, about mentorship. Some of how I imagine women supporting each other.
Yes.
You also give me joy while I watch you grow and evolve. Yeah. When you hit your stride, I feel really proud that there was maybe a contribution I had in that. Yeah, so it works both ways, but I'm really, I feel very humbled by the fact that you call me your mentor.
Yes to all the above. How this actually happened and how it came to be is last year. So this is now we're recording in October of 2024. So in 2023 was a big year for me. 2023, I have a friend. His name is Mr. Jazz Joe Hall.
We love a Jazz Joe Hall.
We love a Jazz Joe Hall. And she's allowed to say that because that's her husband.
Yes.
So Jazz Joe Hall is my friend. We were having coffee like once in a while. We had a brunch, and then during the brunch, I was like, hey, Jazz, like I'm about to become an executive director at 5X. And he was like, oh, you should hang out with my wife. And I was like, all I know is that your wife is this woman who wore this really nice green lehenga. That's all I knew of
Remember
you.
my train?
Yes, it was so beautiful. And so I said to him, I said, okay, what about your wife? And he's like, well, she's the executive director of Community. And I've heard of Community. I've known about Community since I was at SFU. And I'll tell you, this is going to be off the podcast, but I'll tell you how I actually know about Community. I'll tell you that. I've never actually shared that story with you. But anyway, it's not a bad story. But anyway, he goes, you should meet with my wife. She's an executive director. And I really think that it would be helpful for you to connect with like another executive director. And that was at a time where I actually didn't even know why it was important and why he was saying that, because at that time I had no concept of executive leadership. I had only really seen leadership mentored to me by a lot of the men in my life. And so I agreed to meet you. And we had a brunch on Main Street at Acorn, and you were standing outside. And I still remember I walked over, and it's like September, so it's like fairly warm. And you were wearing this like beautiful black outfit that had like a lace trim, and like your hands, your nails were painted black, and then your toes were painted black, and you were just like this like edgy woman. And I was feeling so nervous, and I was having so much imposter syndrome. And then we went in and we had brunch together. During that brunch, you started crying.
I know. I'm such a crier. Also, the fashions are good, but I am a crier.
Yeah. And then I don't know. I can't remember if you explicitly said or if I don't know how it happened, but we just came to an agreement that brunch that you were going to be my mentor. And I asked, and this is when the tears started. I said, why do you want to do this? Like, what do you get out of this? And you said to me, well, I didn't have a you when I didn't have a me when I needed a me, you know, like there was no one there because we'll get into this in a second. But when you started as an executive director, you didn't have someone that could sort of like be there for you and, you know, like navigate through what it means to be a racialized woman in a leadership position.
Yeah.
Right.
I still remember that brunch fondly. Mm-hmm. I remember while we were eating, you had questions about like, how did you find this job? Like what is your commitment to community, right? Like, how do you find value in your work? What is purpose-driven leadership? Mm-hmm. And I remember your questions were inquisitive, but there was like a need to want to really like capture that moment. Mm-hmm. And I started crying. I'm such a crier. It happens so much to me. I'm an emotional person. And I've learned to accept that about myself.
Yeah.
But
as you should.
Well, thank you. I think people need to cry more, but that's me. I think when I started at Community 4 years ago, this was my first executive leadership. I remember, you know, Community has a very deep space that I occupy that is important to me when it comes to not only my work, but my personal life. Because not only is it my ambition as like a SIC to be able to support communities that are underserved and marginalized, but there are many intersections that are similar to and that I deeply connect with when it comes to the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. And so when I arrived, I've through experience, maybe through also the nature of the organization at that time, I was struggling. Mm-hmm. And it's natural to struggle when you first start a new job. But for me, this felt like deep pressure to succeed. Yeah. If you know anything about organizations, you know that sometimes what happens is organizations change and shift, and they're at a place where they really need a lot of leadership and support. Mm-hmm. When I arrived at Community, that was very much the gig. And I knew this place needs to thrive. And because I heard the stories, I saw the people, many of the folks that are served at Community, I was also supporting in my HIV work. Right. So I knew that this place needed to exist. And the drive and the pressure for me was just like, okay, what do I need to do? How do I need to get there? But I didn't have anyone to take me to lunch and say, it's going to be shit. Yeah. I'm so sorry. It's going to be shit. Yeah. There are going to be lots of questions asked about why you're doing this gig, and there's going to have nothing to do with the competency of your job. Yeah. You're going to get a lot more criticism because of the many identities I hold, especially for the fact that I'm a brown woman. And the reality is you might start off getting underpaid, undersupported, under-resourced. Yeah. And it's going to be your job to change that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in that conversation, there was just like a very natural want for me to be there for you. Yeah. I always believe, and I think I've shared this with you, is like, if you talk about women supporting women, I want you to show up.
100%.
Yeah. It's, to me, like, for sure, Instagram is a popular platform that we are using to share information, and there's visibility, and I love that. Mm-hmm. But Instagram isn't going to get me through that report that I need to put in, right? Yeah. Instagram isn't going to hold my hand when I get a shitty email from a donor saying, you know, a bunch of book loss. Yeah. Instagram isn't going to hold my hand when I am struggling to connect with my management team or like finding ways around policy development. Instagram doesn't help you. Mm-hmm. You need mentors. And especially if you are a woman touting to support other women, you show the fuck up. Yeah. That means when I'm struggling, I expect you to be there. And I was really hoping that this was my opportunity to do that. And so far it has been.
It has been. It's been so fruitful, and something that I had said quite recently publicly in a space where I got to take you as my +1 and just like really honor the space that you've held for me, is that you can't become what you can't see. And it's really important to have people who can see you in your totality and in your entirety. So, you know, if you are experiencing a shitty email, you are experiencing criticism. As women of color, as racialized women, we often experience a level of like criticism, criticality, feedback in a way that is so different than what other people experience. And so it's not just about the job. It's not just about the email. It's like everything, right? It's your identity wrapped up into it. It's your own emotions, your own sense of worth and sense of self. And, I had a mentor that was different, right? And he's the previous executive director of 5X. His name is Tarun Nair. Lovely man. One of the greatest people I know. But there were so many times where I would go to him with something and he'd be like, Harpo, I'm like so sorry. I've never experienced this before. You're experiencing it because you're a woman of color, and you're young. I literally don't know how to help you with this. And that's a really hard place to be when there's someone that can't help you with that, can't help you navigate that. It's not that they have to do it for you, but the fact that they can't even find resonance in your experience, then you're not able to actualize it for yourself.
And I think that there's I am hoping that even in our relationship or through any mentorship or any kind of peer support that you get, I can give you the tools. You'll reimagine it and do whatever you need to do in a different way. But to sit in the discomfort with you that you experience, to affirm it, and then to say and to give a little bit of a nod to the fact that it can get better is really the thing, right? I remember when previous to even community in a leadership role that I remember asking myself, why am I getting treated differently? I used to walk into meetings and people used to say, oh, cute shoes, glossing over the fact that I may be here because I've obviously my competency, but to minimize me because of my femininity or how I showed up. Or people would ask me, often white people would ask me oh, do your parents speak English? Oh, I'm surprised you're at this table. It had nothing to do with how good I was at my job, what I was providing to the space, and everything to do with the many intersections that I held.
Totally.
And even now I get it. I think I have a lot more grace with myself now about what that looks like, but it's shit. Because if I was a man, if I was a white man in specific, I would get glorified for just showing up. Yeah. And I have to work harder. I have to work smarter. I have to be more transparent. I have to be more resourceful. I have to be more tactful to get to the same place as many of my counterparts have. Yeah. And I used to think that was a disservice, right? That I got to work so much harder. Yeah. But now I feel much more privileged. Yeah. Because that journey of developing all of these skills has made me a really robust leader and has made me, in my opinion, much better than my counterparts because I've struggled. I've had to have support from my board. I've had to have support from the people around me who I work with to get here. And I think that is a deep privilege now I have.
Absolutely. And as you're saying that, what I'm thinking about also is that it actually lends so well into inner leadership also. That to me is something that I've really noticed that executive leadership or any sort of leadership role will inevitably highlight everything about you and your life. Yes. It's so much. And I think this is why leadership is difficult and why it's important to have people in your life who can model safe and really brave, warm spaces to you, is because leadership requires you to handle your shit, to get your shit together. There are a lot of people who don't handle their shit together, right? Who don't have it together. There are a lot of people. But what I have learned is that leadership has highlighted almost everything about me that I don't like about myself, that I find hard to love, that I'm critical about, is highlighted and brought all of it to the forefront. And I carry all of that into every space that I go into. And if on the other side, I am having all of that reinforced, it's a double whammy that I have to navigate in one space. Whereas if someone on the other end thinks I'm good enough and I'm the only one who thinks I'm not good enough, okay, fine. We've been here before. We'll deal with it. But when it's a double whammy, it's too much.
Someone once told me leadership brings those mirrors that you avoid.
100%. Right in your face. And house of mirrors.
God, those mirrors, they keep coming up. I remember my first year board feedback. It was a resounding, Anoop, you're defensive. And I was like, oh no. I am not. The irony there. I see now. I It's okay. So it's like two-pronged, right? Like I have lived my job. For the first 2 years, I don't even remember like having the capacity to like go to the washroom or have lunch because I was like, I'm going to get there. We're all going to do it together. How do I do it?
Yeah.
But the pressure made my work and my life and my personal life all blend into this thing. So when someone gave me feedback or critique, I thought it was about me. Right? I'm like, you're actually not saying this about this body of work. You're saying it about Anoop. And I have had to work with, coach and, wonderful people on my board that have helped me tease that out. And some of the staff who give me space to kind of share that. But those mirrors that I had avoided that were kind of like, to some degree, serving me until I got to the spot required me now to manage my shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. I'm thinking about a mirror that has been probably the most, what's the word? Like the most prevalent mirror, the hardest mirror to navigate. And I think it'll lead really well into our dynamic and, what I really want to get to the heart of here. A mirror that leadership has really held up to me is my relationship with women. It's really, really held it up to me. Even having you across from me, being like, I had a moment just a few minutes ago where I was like, oh my God, she's actually in the room. Like she's actually here. Like she's in my life. And like, I just had a moment where I was like, oh, like this is who I am now. This is my life now. There was a large chunk of time in my life. It still happens sporadically, but there was a large chunk in my life for such a long time where I constantly struggled with my relationship with female friendships. We were friends, we were like getting really close, and then we would like fall away, and then it would be something, and then like now there's all these relationships out in the world that are not kind, there's no flow there, there's no ease there. And then it started to show up in my professional life as well, where a lot of, I think the greatest feedback that I used to get is that Harpo becomes friends with everybody that she works with, and there's no boundaries, there's no line. It becomes inappropriate. That line between professional and personal gets really blurred. And I was convinced that there was something deeply wrong with me, that I was perhaps doing something, perhaps I wasn't good enough. Maybe I was envious and jealous of other women. Maybe I had a lot of internalized misogyny. I think there's probably elements of all of that are very, very true. But leadership was really difficult for me until I sorted that out, until I continued to prioritize sorting that out and being in rooms with other women who are my contemporaries and not feeling like I have to compete with them, not feeling like I am less than, so I need to be better or I need to be different or I need to change myself. That was probably the greatest thing that I had to experience. And then I think when I did meet you, and now a year later after a relationship, the realization that I often have is like, I let all of that mean something about me. But then when I have someone like you in my life, I'm not putting my value and my self-worth in you, but it's actually just now the mirror has changed to be like, no, you are deserving of this kind of female friendship and mentorship and guidance and like this like divine relationship with other women.
Yeah. Okay. So a little bit of grace we need to give you. Right?
Also, yeah, I was like 23.
Maturing into womanhood, especially as a brown girl, takes time.
Yeah.
We just talked a little bit about what is modeled to us. I love my community. I do, truly. But strength in womanhood isn't always modeled.
Yeah.
Positive narratives around women aren't always modeled. Positive narratives around leadership in an experience around womanhood is not modeled. Healthy relationships around women is not modeled. In the Punjabi community, it's unfortunate to say, but from a young age, we are socialized to be competitive with each other, to compete against resources in a household, to compete around the male gaze, to compete around access to other spaces of empowerment. Because how many times have you seen many powerful women, brown women, come together and you're like, I want to be in that room? It doesn't really show up in our community.
Yeah.
And I think generational trauma, colonization, immigration, all the things most probably are factors leading to. But the reality is we don't see it. And so when we are growing through these phases of developing relationships with women, relationships with our mothers, relationships with the other women in our space, it's hard to think about the beauty of womanhood when that's not shown. So give a little bit of grace to yourself.
Yeah.
You were growing up.
Yeah.
I think for me, one of the most pivotal things in my life has been and will continue to be is the very important relationship I have with women. I think the spirit of womanhood is resilient and strong and supportive and kind and loving and nourishing. And that all of those things have been so deep a part of my journey because I don't have a relationship with my mom. Yeah. Growing up, I had these really strong figures in my life. But when you have that trauma related to such a pivotal part of growing up, you may, if you decide, to quickly find other sources of that same energy. And I have been very blessed to have really amazing friends who show up for me, really amazing people that I can poke, women that I can poke, growing up in spaces of professions, watching them carry the many titles of their life, and then having the curiosity of finding women who are going to nourish that space for me was really important. And so, I think about some of the relationships that brown girls have to their mothers, maybe the dysfunctional ones or the ones that don't exist, like myself, or maybe some of the ones that need to get reimagined. Womanhood can be very powerful. It can also feel debilitating when you don't have that support system to kind of help you navigate the complexity. But now that I'm, in my mid-30s, I am so grateful for the many women around me, and they nourish me till this day. And I am now in a great privilege where I can nourish other women.
Yeah, I think that you must have had to make a conscious effort to do that though, hey? Because, based on what you just said about your relationship dynamic with your mother, which is the most intimate relationship a woman has with another woman, right? Like there's no other relationship. If that's frayed, if that's not strong, then that becomes the basis for how you relate to other women. And if that that inherent foundational relationship is flawed, then of course there's other relationships with women that are also going to mirror that, right? It's going to be projection.
Yeah. And I have, I think there are a few factors that influenced me that I encourage people to think about. One, my relationship with Vaheguru and my relationship to myself will serve me in ways that I had never seen before. To me, my relationship with the universe, my spiritual identity has always kept me grounded. I joke that, life can give me whatever, but I will manage to figure it out because Vaheguru stands with me. So I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah.
The second piece is around I think there are many ways to think about trauma. And systems of oppression. I can talk about all the statistics that brown women have, higher rates of domestic violence or gender-based violence, higher rates of being paid poorly when it comes to their counterparts, like higher rates of homicide and all of the other things that comes to being a brown woman, all the things. You can decide that it is overwhelming, you don't have the support, life is really hard, and you are under-equipped, and things can happen to you. That is the reality, right? You live in these systems, whether it's healthcare, housing, whatever, these systems are created and you kind of move through them. One thing about me is I'm kind of very stubborn, which I think has served me. I refuse to do that. Yeah. I will not let a system act on me. I refuse to let the relationship or the dysfunction of my relationship with my mother define my future. I refuse to let that callous my relationship with other women. I refuse to let that impact how I'm going to be a mother in the future. I refuse to let the relationships not define my future relationships with women.
Right.
And I think that's the part that I want people to feel like you're empowered to do. You can find the energy. You can find the power to do so. For sure, it is not easy. And there's a certain degree that you can do within certain systems. But you have the capacity to change. You know, as a Sikh, I think about what that means to me. And that means to learn how I can do better. Whether it's, you know, finding ways to care for myself when I get tired, journaling, counseling, talking to other women. My goodness, the stories that have healed me from listening to other women are infinite. But if you don't decide to open that door, and if you decide to say, hey, I'm going to let these systems act on me, these relationships that are horrible, you know, kind of be pervasive in my life, you can decide that. I'm not sure that will take you far, or you can decide the stubborn route. And I promise the more stubborn route might lead to a different outcome.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my relationship dynamic with my mother has been like, I'm her mom. Right. I'm definitely her mom.
Been there.
We've been growing and changing a lot because of my boundaries. There's a lot of love there, but yeah, that was a really challenging place to be parentified in that way. And for a very long time, I was like, in a victim mentality around it, where I was like, oh my God, like poor me. Like I didn't have a mom, you know what I mean? I did that for a long time. And then, it started to, again, like show up in other dynamics, right? They start to show up in relationships with other women. And I was like, I'm going to fix this. And so,
but see, what's the pivot point here?
Yeah, I'm going to fix this.
You have to make that choice,
You
right?
have to make that choice. Yeah. And like this kind of work is so hard. It is so deep. It takes everything out of you, and it's ugly. It's messy. It's all of it. Right. And yet it is the thing that creates change in your life, because then I started to we have the same therapist, pay our therapist a lot of, you know, time and money to help me move through it. And then I started to see a shift. I started to notice that the thing was shifting. I noticed that my relationship with myself was shifting, with my environment, with other women. It was starting to shift because I didn't need from other women what I was trying to seek from my mom. And I remember having to say very vulnerably to multiple women in my life, I'm so sorry that I have been looking for a mother in you. I've said that at least 3 times in my life.
That is profound and deep and fucked all at the same place.
All fucked up, right? Because we do that. Like I've done that from best friends. I've done that from cousins. I've done that from other women who are not in a mentorship capacity, but in a leadership capacity in my life.
I do the opposite, surprisingly.
What do you do?
I am the mother.
You are the mother. Yeah, I do that too.
Totally.
Yeah.
I remember I worked with a coach, Jess, really amazing. And I remember my first year, and one thing I do is like, I love to care for people. It is just this natural thing that I have, and I'm very protective of the people that I care about. But I went into this organization and I saw the struggle, and just this feeling of motherhood came over me, where I was like, I'm going to deeply care for this organization at my detriment sometimes.
Yeah.
But like, I was like, you know, kind of like, let me care for these people in that like very deep way. And I remember when I, you know, whether it was counseling or these coaching sessions, I remember I sat there and like, I had to say to myself, you're nobody's mother, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, ain't my mama.
Exactly. These people are not paying you to be their mama. You are way too invested in your job.
You know, I was called momager at 5X for a very long time. Momager.
Girl, but I think it's also how I want to be, like, how I want to be affirmed, right? Is that I've helped you. But now for me, help is more about like empowering you to do the thing rather than like, hey, do you need me to do this project for you?
Yeah. Every part of it.
Very much every part of it. But that's growth, right? Like, I have been given this privilege of taking this job that brings up these mirrors, that gives me an opportunity to heal myself.
Yeah.
That I would never take that away from anybody who's ever in a leadership role. That has served me so much. I hope it has served community. I hope it served the staff and our wonderful volunteers and all of the folks connected. But I realized I am the catalyst for my own shit.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Something that you said earlier is so sticky and I can't get it out of my heart now. What did you say? That brown women are not
socialized?
Yeah.
To be friends with each other?
No, something about transitioning into womanhood. Like brown women are not taught how to like move into womanhood.
No.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah. Because if you think about it, like as young brown girls, we're first in service to our family, right?
Yeah.
All the things, especially if you're like an older sibling who's a brown girl, like, girl, you take on the world on your shoulders.
Yeah.
You are in service to your parents, to your grandparents, to your, mossy down the street. You are the thing that, especially if you have immigrants in your family, fucking, you're writing the forms, you're taking them this, you're getting a driver's license so you can take people to Guadalajara.
You're paying for our mom's overdue FIDO bill because her phone's going to get canceled in 14 days. My God.
You are in service, right? Okay. Then, right as you're like getting into university, you're now like, you're prompted to go to the next phase of your life, right? Which is supposed to be like post-secondary. And then you're like, oh shit, I also because you have been socialized to be of service, you don't let go of that service. And then you're like forced into the space where you're like, okay, but now you need to like develop yourself professionally. It is hard to be able to think about yourself when you are thinking of others.
Right.
And then you get to a place where you're like, the age clock starts and everybody in your community is like, you're ready to get married now, bro.
Yeah.
Like, get it together. And even though they've been telling us for time immemorial, don't look at anybody, don't date, don't do any of that, you now are suddenly expected to find a suitor and get your wagon hitched.
And also quite often like very heteronormative and heterosexual.
Oh, totally. We have no space in our community around different gender identities, different sexualities, right? We have this one very clear funnel and we got to get through it. And then you realize that the only way to maybe get out of this janjal, to get out of this like loop of service and to be of service to people is to get married.
Yeah.
And this thing is like the thing that's going to get you out of here, right? Because what you see, and every brown girl has imaged this, you want to be like in your 40s, living in your like a house. You want to have financial freedom. You want to be supported. You want to be loved. You want to have, kids, all the things. And you see this stability. You see freedom for yourself. You see opportunity for yourself. And it is tethered to this marriage. Except nobody told us about who and what love looks like. Who to find as someone who is going to support you, be kind to you, love you, nourish you, be with you during those times of difficulty in your life. Nobody taught us what that looks like. And now we clamor to find it. And for womanhood, it is like stages of evolution, right? Nobody socializes us to see it. Nobody says, in your 20s and 30s, you're supposed to really grow who you are. You're supposed to be independent. You're supposed to learn all the things so that if you decide to have a family or if you decide to support people, that you are feeling really whole and full about yourself.
Yeah, fulfilled. Yeah.
Nobody teaches us.
Nobody does.
I thought I was supposed to get fulfilled by making everybody chalaka. Right? Like, no, but that's true.
I almost just choked on my own jaw.
Everyone's like, chalaka barata hai nahi changi pali cha banai hai.
Okay, sidebar. One time my dad was telling me that this couple that we know got divorced and he goes, ਕੁੜੀ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਹੁਰੇ ਨੂੰ ਚਾਹ ਦਾ ਕੱਪ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ ਦੇ ਸਕਦੀ ਸੀਗੀ. I said, so that's why she got divorced? I'm like, ਚਾਹ ਦਾ ਕੱਪ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਕੁੜੀ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਾਉਣਾ ਆਉਂਦਾ. You think that I should get divorced because of that?
Yeah. ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਹ is abhorrent.
It's shit.
It's so bad.
I can make max 2 cups.
I have lots of skills in life. Making cha da cup?
Not one.
Not at all. Right? But we're supposed to be so happy.
Yeah.
When the family looks over at you after you've brought the cha da cup down and they say, Kinni vadiya cha da cup banayi.
Yeah.
Kinni, like she's so well versed.
She's so family type.
Yes. And that's supposed to be gold star fulfilling for us.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, what happens is days, years go by, and the cha da cup doesn't do it.
No.
And then we sit there. Oh, fuck. What is supposed to fill me? Is it children? Is it caring for my family?
Yeah.
Is it being a housewife? Like,
is it having multiple children?
Is it having multiple jobs? Is it running a business? Is it, being an entrepreneur? Is it being an advocate? Is it being an ally? Like, what's the thing? You're supposed to discover that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, nobody gives us space to discover that. And so these relationships in life happen where you become a mom, you become a wife, you become a caregiver, you become an employee, and there's no space to discover that part of you that is supposed to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
But it's true. Nobody teaches us how to be happy.
Yeah.
Happiness isn't just about, bringing the service to the forefront. Happiness is about, like, if everything else went away, would I be okay with sitting with myself?
Yeah. And most of us can't, right? And I think, like, this is what all of my recent training has taught me, is that most of us have a really hard time sitting with and being with our pain, with ourselves, with our emotions, with our truth. And so we try to fill it, right? We try to fill it with everything that you've just named, right? Everything that you've listed. We try to fill it. And I see so many people, so many women who are juggling so much. They are moms, they have actual jobs, and they have side gigs, and then they have this and they have that, and they're trying to do it all. And I just look at her sometimes and I'm like, how can your tiny body hold this much? Why do you think that your tiny body has to hold this much?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
Do you ever notice that a lot of, like, auntiyan, bibiyan, our moms, all the things, they talk a lot about, like, dukhda, dukhda.
Always.
Okay. Let me tell you a little fact here. Women have more incidences of chronic pain or autoimmune as compared to
70%.
Why is that? Why do women feel the pressure, and why are our bodies taking it on? Maybe that's because entire systems, entire family infrastructures, entire workplaces have been supported, held up by women. And I think that may not be enough for us. And because we don't maybe have the coping strategies or the self-care strategies or the support or even just the courage to share with other women because we're scared and nervous and in competition with each other, we are incurring that pain, and it shows up in our bodies.
Yeah. It just stays in our bodies because there's nowhere else for us to transmute it.
Yeah. And I tell, like, especially the much older women in my life, like, if there's something going on in your life, I can give you the medicine that's going to make you feel better. Tell another person. Tell the other women. Share your story. Whether it's the smallest interaction with a human being that's pissed you off, share it. Because the more you hold it inside, the more you don't talk about it because you think it's taboo or uncomfortable or whatever the case may be, the more it's going to impact you and your health.
Yeah.
And this whole system is built around you. So you're not doing yourself justice. You're definitely not doing anybody else in your family infrastructure or your work or whoever it is justice. Talk about it.
Yeah. But I think what's interesting is, like, we like to posit, like, female friendships and relationships as really safe spaces to be able to talk about things. That's not always the case, actually. No. It's a little secret if you are not a woman. Actually, I think most people know this. We're quite catty with one another. We are actually not super safe sometimes. We don't have each other's best interest in mind. We actually can be very, we can hold grudges, and we can just not be, like, really safe environments for one another. That very much exists in between women.
But why do you have these women around you?
I don't anymore.
Yeah.
Right? As I started to step into a greater leadership position with myself and be like, Harpo, this is behavior. So let me actually give you an example. A woman in my life recently spoke really rudely to me. She was inappropriate. In the middle of that conversation, I ended the relationship. In the conversation, I was like, I'm going to stop you right here. I think we have a serious values misalignment. And the values misalignment was the way that she was speaking to me. I would not speak to people like that. I don't speak to someone like that. So in the conversation, I drew a line. And I remember sharing that with my therapist, I think. I can't remember. I shared it with somebody in my life. And she goes, whoa, like, you stood up, like in that moment, like Harpo was in her fullest expression and she stood up. The divine mother stood up and she was like, no. It's taken so long for me to get to this, to be like in the conversation, not afterwards, not thinking about what I would have said or what I should have said, in the conversation, be like, no, you cannot do this. And I had an interesting like spiritual kind of experience after that, like this like woohoo meditation, where I got to sit down with these different parts of me on the inside. And the part of me that was really angry that this woman spoke to me in this way was having a fit on the inside. Mind you, this is inner Harpo, right?
Yeah.
Inside Harpo, there is someone in me that was really mad about the way that this person spoke to me. And another version of Harpo looks at that version and goes, you're not allowed to be mad. That's how you talk to you. That's how you speak to me. That's how you treat me. So if you want everybody else to stop talking to you in this way and treating you in this way, how about you start first? How about you stop self-criticizing, putting yourself down, speaking to yourself in that way? Sure, I don't speak to other people that way. I speak to me that way.
Yeah.
And as soon as I drew a line and was like, I'm not doing this with me anymore, why would I accept that from anybody else?
I mean, that is learning about who you are and what your subconscious tells yourself. But it's also about like, you know, if you believe in the laws of attraction or however you want to describe your theology around life, I think sometimes in life you attract that because that's also how you speak to yourself, right? But, you know, again, you know, we talk about growing into different phases, right? This next iteration of Harpo wants to leave that behind.
Yeah, she really does.
Yeah. She wants to leave the way that she speaks ill about herself behind. She wants to also leave the players and narratives that are about her behind because it no longer serves her. And that to me is a signal for you for growth. That you're like, okay, the next stage, what does that look like? And I don't think that's a bad thing. I also think someone once told me this, and I remember it stuck in my brain. You are not, like, nobody says that you have to share all of the intimate life details with others.
What?
Yeah. You do not have to share your innermost knowledge,
to know that.
working wisdoms, who you're sleeping with, what your life preferences are, how you show up in the world, your employment. Literally, nobody says that you have to share that with anybody. Just because you have a friendship doesn't mean you have to share the most intimate details about who you are. There is not a requirement to do that to be cared for and supported. It is also not a requirement to tell all of the inner workings to your parents. It is also not a requirement to tell all of the inner workings about your soul, your spirit, how you show up in the world, who you love, to your intimate partner. There is a deep privilege that you get to have in knowing me. You earn that privilege through years of trust building, through years of showing up. I let you into who I am. You do not get access to all of me at the beginning of our relationship.
Right.
And I want, like, whether it's an intimate partner or whether it's a new relationship, I want all of us to think about, why does this person get to know you? You are special. You are important. Knowing you should be a privilege, and you get to earn that. If you are not on good behavior, if you are unkind to me, if you are critical of me, if you are not supporting me, I'm sorry, but you don't get access to that. Because when we share thoughts, when we share dialogue, when we share intimacies, regardless of the relationship, I'm letting you into who I am. And that's not accessible to everyone.
Right. Yeah. And we have to be okay with that, right? Like we have to embrace that. It's okay for you not to be accessible to everybody. Often that comes from a place of like trying to win love and validation.
But I also think that comes from this very, have you ever heard of positionality?
Yes, but how in this context?
Okay. In many different titles or phases in your life, you have power, you have access to more space, etc. I urge you, the next time you are moving forward in a relationship, to think about your position in that relationship. For example, I have really amazing staff. There are things that I'm comfortable sharing. And there are things, because of the power I hold in this dynamic, it's not wise, inappropriate for me to share. When you think about a relationship with someone who has more power or more whatever, wisdom, money, finances, you need to take into consideration how you show up in those relationships. And that should also guide what is the purpose of this relationship, right? There are things that my friends know that my partner doesn't know. There are things that my employer knows that my friends may not know. But that's the context around positionality.
Right. Yeah. I always think of it as like really being mindful of the roots of the relationship. Like if the relationship is a tree, what are the roots like? How long have they been there? How strong are they? How interconnected are they? You know, to really think about it in that way. Recently I was experiencing something that could have been fun, but I was making it a little bit challenging. It was kind of fun, you know, but I was making it a bit challenging. You said to me, you gave me such good advice, and I have told so many people in my life since then. And I want to talk about it here because I think it'll be really helpful and important for the girlies who are listening. So you're 35 now.
Yes.
35 years young, beautiful.
Moisturizing, taking care of myself, trying to at least.
Beautiful skin, porcelain girl. And I was sharing with you like what I was moving through as like a 28-year-old. You know, it was so important for me to know and learn that the 35-year-old Anoop that I know has also been through this at 28, right? And you sent me like, guys, Anoop sent me pictures of herself like modeling from years ago. And I was like, you're a model? That is not the BB that I know now. But, you know, I was sharing this with you and you said to me, you said, Harpo, you need to be the girl that you are right now in order to be the woman that you are going to be one day. And I just remember my jaw dropping to be like, oh, yeah, I do need to be the girl that I am right now to be the woman that I want to be one day. I am just on this path and this mission to be that woman immediately, overnight. Okay, but I needed you to tell me that, Harpo, you have to journey to her. You have to get to her. You will not get to her by bypassing all of this, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
It's because a woman said that to me.
Yeah.
I was at work one day. Let me tell you.
Yeah, tell a story. Tell a story. I love it.
And I remember.
Do the full acting, okay?
Okay.
I love the full acting.
I remember I was similar to your age.
Yeah.
You know, I was in this director gig and, you know, I was really like fueling myself professionally. And I had a heartbreak and I went to work. And I remember I was in a stall and I don't know, it was in the washroom stall. And I was like, crying. And I'm talking like, you know, how can you like I was like full on crying. Yeah. And I one of the women that I look up to was also in that washroom and was like, are you okay? And I was like, I will be. I was like, I will be independent and powerful. And why doesn't this person love me back? And I felt like I was like clearly in my heartbreak feeling.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, why does this hurt me so much? Right. Like I, in that moment, I was like, I just like, get to the thing.
Yeah. Get over this. Yeah.
And I remember I was like, you know, fucking nutty is coming down, eyes. Or I was like gasping for breath. And she looked at me with this, I remember this radiant and kind smile. And she said, sit in this. And I wouldn't ever take this learning away from you. And I was like, oi, wudu. Yeah. Like, tell me the thing I need to hear so I can get to the next spot, right? Yeah. And I'm so glad I sat there. Because the next time an experience similar to that happened, I had experienced that like visceral emotional reaction and I did better. Now that I am in my BB life, I have no regrets.
Yes.
Girl, I've done the clubs. I've done I have experienced life so fully that I now at this age, I have also matokar badi khadi hai.
Yeah.
I have bumped up to the wrong people. I have learned lessons in the hard way. I've gone through the shitty misogyny at work. Like I'm most probably still going through it to some degree. I have experienced shit relationships. I've seen it, done it. And now at 35, my goodness. And this woman said this to me too. And I was like, you're complete bullshit telling me. I remember she said that she has 2 kids and like, you know, doing all of these amazing things as this beautiful oak tree mom. And she was a person who was like, I wouldn't take this away from you. And she's like, you know, and at that point, she must have been in her like late 30s, early 40s, late 30s probably. And she said, you know what I find like really brings me joy? Sitting at a stoplight with my heated seats quietly. And I was like, oi, what kind of life is this?
Yeah.
That's joy to you?
Yeah.
Now at 35, after living a very full life, because remember, as a brown girl, no one's going to give you permission to live.
Yes.
Right? You have to capture it. You have to find the ways to develop yourself. You have to find the ways to grow. You have to find the ways to take up space. If you decide to do that, I promise you, 35, the best, happiest moments of my life. I'm so sorry to all my loved ones in this room. And in my life are when I have a warm cup of coffee with a little bit of hazelnut creamer in my very cute porcelain mug with a matching teacup and saucer in my fluffy robe, sitting quietly in my apartment.
Yeah.
Top peak of joy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. You're at peace.
I have fucking made it. If I can have that coffee warm from fucking brim to bottom, I am enjoying my life. All the other stuff is like the beauty that I've kind of worked hard to cultivate, which is great, but nobody can take that joy from you. You want to get to Harpo, who is, you know.
You already know it.
I already know. But you want to get there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Did you ever think that Harpo needs you to struggle through, gain the skills, gain the tools so that Harpo can feel really good?
I didn't think about it before until you said it to me that day.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so important. Like what you're saying is so important. And I just want to like stay with it for a second here, because you said earlier that we will spend all of our lives doing things for everybody else. And then we're going to wake up one day. And I've just always felt this way. I do not want to wake up at 40 one day and not be content and fulfilled. I don't want that. You know, I really don't want that. But no one is going to give us that permission.
No.
Literally not a single person, not our parents, not our siblings, not our partners, not our children, not our grandchildren. Nobody will give you that permission except you.
If you're lucky in life, you might have a few people who tell you, take time off. Don't do this thing for this person. You don't have to show up for this person. You don't have to do more work or harder work. If you're lucky. You could easily, life is like a tap. The more you decide to unwind it, the more that gush of water comes out. The work is endless. You're caring for people, you're caring for your work, doing the thing, like it is endless. But there are small moments, if you decide and you choose, that you have to capture for yourself. And it is, if you decide to take those moments to care for yourself and or the time to self-develop, to find out what is going to fulfill you, I promise you, by the time you get to 40, you'll have lived this beautiful life, that anything after that is going to be, you know, cream on this cake that you're going to deeply enjoy. But you can't get to that place without going through this difficultness.
Yeah. I mean, even if you are 40 now and you're listening to this, because there are many women who are older who listen to this, I say this to my mom all the time. It's never too late to start living your life. You can start right now. You can start today.
Yeah. I know a very important woman in my life who, you know, has spent 37 years taking care of her family. And now she didn't really have friends before. In the last year and a half, I have watched her develop friendships. She leaves the home more often. She feels happier. And this is a woman who's like in her mid 60s. At this age, she decided, also because of circumstance, that she needed to live with herself. And wow, like she's experiencing less anxiety attacks. She's experiencing joy. She feels like she's living for something. At any age, you can decide to make a choice.
Yeah, go do it. Like go live your life. Go have fun. Wear what you want to wear. Do your hair how you want to do it. Experiment with that makeup. Go get laid. Literally go get laid. Like
I know.
life is too short. Like if you're in your prime tit years, just go get laid. Who gives a shit?
Okay, can we talk about this thing? Because I know this is going to be spicy for some. The joys that your body gives you doesn't need to be tethered to a relationship.
Of course
doesn't
not.
need to be tethered to a relationship that's like long term, has like things associated with it like marriage. Think of it like you're teaching your body how to be happy, how to claim that kind of happiness, how to claim that kind of joy. I think for brown girls, we're really socialized to think about like sex or pleasure, any kind of pleasure.
Any kind of pleasure.
100% any kind of pleasure. To feel guilty about it.
Yeah,
right?
brown girl guilt, hashtag, shout out.
But that's because we're not supposed to live for ourselves,
Yeah.
right? You're supposed to live for others. That you are literally, when you go back to like this agricultural kind of experience, colonization that all of us kind of stem from, you were born into a family so that you could take care of them.
And produce more and more of them.
100%. And wow, like now you are asking, hey, what does my life look like?
Yeah.
What happens if I am in a place where I don't want to have kids? I don't want to get married. I don't want to be with a man. I don't want to, have a conventional job that my parents want me to. I want to develop myself. I want to develop my mind. I want to think about my heart. I want to think about service. Like what happens now?
Yeah.
And in our community, we are figuring out how to give space to women so they can do that. It is difficult.
It is.
Some of us are not happy about it.
Nope.
There's a shift that's happening, but I am telling you, if you want true freedom, if you want to feel strong and resilient without the factors of having a family, a parent, a husband, a children, whatever those things, you have to work on developing yourself.
Yeah. And you can also have all of those things too.
Of course.
100% you can. Just the place from which you rise for that, the place from which you go and embrace that can be different. It doesn't have to be because you're filling a large gaping hole. It can be because it's what you want and it's what you deserve. If you want a white picket fence, girl, get your white picket fence.
100%.
Get it. But don't get it because you think that is going to be a step in for your self-worth.
No.
For your value.
Or if you think that gives you freedom, because it's
not going to. Yeah. So if you want to dye your hair, you want to cut your hair, you want to get bangs, don't do it. Don't do it after marriage. Do it now.
Yeah. Oh, the times that I've heard.
ब्याह तो बाद कर लें
ब्याह तो बाद vacation जा सकती है
या
ब्याह तो बाद है कपड़े पा सकते
टैटू करना ब्याह तो बाद नक बनवाना ब्याह तो बाद
masters करनी है
ब्याह तो बाद
everything is centered about
ब्याह आग लगे ब्याह ਨੂੰ
need I remind everybody our divorce rate is pretty high.
Yes, within the first and second year.
Totally. And I think it's also because we don't understand the commitment that we're making.
Yep. Because
we're looking, this is the thing that's, remember, supposed to get us out of the house.
Yep.
Right?
Freedom.
This is freedom.
Jila apni zindagi.
100%. You make the cha. They say, "Kini soni meri voti hogi." Thank you so much. And it is supposed to strike freedom for me. But when you get there, Rab na kare. What if it doesn't feel like freedom?
It probably won't because of where it came from.
And then this is what I hope for you. You take that moment and you say, okay, what are the choices I have to make now? But if you want to change, the choice has to come from you.
Mm-hmm.
Your parents are definitely not going to tell you, hey, theek hai, take time to cultivate yourself. Absolutely not. Your siblings aren't going to tell you. Your employer isn't going to tell you. Your friends aren't going to tell you. Your loved one isn't going to tell you. None of them are going to tell you.
No, because they benefit off of that.
Of course. You're going to have to tell yourself that.
Yep. 100%. Well, then.
We could talk for ages.
We could talk for ages. On that note, is there anything else that you wanted to say before we wrap?
Yes. I'm a very private person.
And
I don't often get the opportunities that I think are opportunities to share some of my work and kind of how I show up in the world. And I am grateful for this opportunity to share. And I also hope that if there is anyone, brown girls in specific, that you emulate or that you want to be like, don't be nervous to give them a poke.
Yeah. Always.
Because what could happen? They could say, hey, I'm too busy. Great, move on. But I wish as we talk about mentorship, and maybe something I'm thinking about right now in life, is what does mentorship look like for me? I've never had the opportunity to have a mentor. I've never also felt like I was courageous enough to do it. This process has given me an opportunity to be like, maybe I need to find a partner.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to find someone who I can look up to. Maybe I can find someone who can help support me. So if you are looking to emulate, to care about someone's life in that way, or just to have someone show up for you in your workspace.
Yeah, totally. And I will also say, like, on the other side of this, when I was moving through my period of isolation around my experiences, I swear to God, I got on my knees and I prayed. I was like, God, I want a mentor. I want it to be a her, and I want her to be a brown woman. Just bring me a crone. Bring her to me. Please, please bring her to me. And, there was some trial and error in that. Like, there was some people that came and then it didn't work out. But then eventually it did. And that was God's plan. It was my plan and then God's plan kind of coming together. And that was you, bro.
Oh, so kind, so kind.
That was you. So I will say that, like, for those of us who are in positions where we can offer mentorship, there's always someone out there that's literally praying for you and, like, wanting you and seeking you. So, like, having enough courage and seeing your own value and being able to do that. Like, it requires an immensely open heart to be like, I'm going to mentor this person. I have a mentee and she's so cute and she's adorable and she texts me all the time. She gets me gifts and it's amazing. And I get to see my own growth in real time when I'm with her.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I totally echo what you said at the beginning, which is like, it's reciprocal. You get so much out of it yourself.
And can I tell, like, other women, if you have time and space and you've kind of made it in your industry or made it in a relationship or however you feel like you were a leader, it's your responsibility to share that then.
It is.
Yeah. Because if we want other girls, other women, our aunties, our mothers, our grandmothers to do better, we have to share what has made us successful to get here, right? Yes. This gatekeeping shit actually just reinforces a lot of the stereotypes.
Patriarchal.
That women can't support each other. If I have learned something, 100% I want to share it with another person.
Totally.
And it doesn't have to be complicated. It can just be like, if you're at a specific work site and this other woman is struggling, 5 minutes it's going to take you to be like, hey, can I show you this thing?
Yeah.
I promise you those 5 minutes will come back to you in leaps and folds, because that's how mentorship works. It's reciprocal.
Yeah. Reciprocal and cyclical.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here. I know you're a private person, and this is your first ever podcast. Yes. Many more to come. You have so much to offer.
Oh, thank you.
You are so full of experience and love, and I am so grateful every single day that you are in my life. I'd have to go find it, but I took a screenshot of the text messages that you and I were sending each other at an event recently. We were across from each other. I mean it. You gave me a lens to see myself through. I was like, oh, okay, that's who I am. Not the other things. This is who I am. And so I adore being adored by you. I adore looking at myself the way that you look at me. It's just really, really, really given me a lot of confidence.
We did it.
We did it. High five. Thank you. That's a wrap.